Sophie Cunningham's 2025 Indiana Fever highlights suddenly went viral when Caitlin Clark casually dropped a comment that changed everything, igniting a storm across social media. What started as classic off-season content, a little memory lane action, turned into a statement that fans and media couldn't ignore. Clark wasn't joking. She was sending a bold message. She wants Cunningham back in Indiana, and now the entire basketball world knows it. The energy shifted instantly. Fan accounts exploded, media ran wild, front offices started sweating, and Cunningham responded just as directly, making it personal with promises of dinners and catch-ups if they reunite. Playful. Maybe. Flirty. Perhaps. But make no mistake, this was a clear signal. Cunningham is coming back. Chemistry, loyalty, and identity are at stake, and anyone who watched the 2025 season knows Cunningham wasn't just contributing. She was Clark's shield through every chaotic moment, absorbing the hits, standing firm, and protecting the team when it mattered most. That kind of unspoken connection can't be manufactured in training camp, drafted, or picked up in free agency. It's rare, undeniable, and exactly why the 2026 season is already buzzing before a single tip-off. Built, earned, and fully lived, the Fever now face a looming 2026 season with a roster crisis that could not have come at a worse time. Expansion is on the horizon, Portland and Toronto stepping in, 2 new cities, 2 new franchises, and 1 chaotic expansion draft that could shake teams to their core. Under WNBA rules, every team can protect only 5, maybe 6 players, forcing impossible choices between stats and soul. Kelsey Mitchell leads in scoring, a defensive anchor, steady, productive, and making perfect sense on paper. But Cunningham, she's everything beyond numbers: defensive versatility, emotional leadership, media magnetism, and cultural influence that most franchises would kill to claim. She's not just a player, she's a bona fide brand. In 2024, she was the second most searched female athlete across the entire United States. Everywhere you look, podcasts, sports shows, interviews, her face and voice dominate, proving her presence is felt far beyond the court. Every move Sophie Cunningham makes goes viral, and she's not just building her own platform. She's dragging the Fever into the national spotlight alongside her, driving massive ticket sales, record-breaking broadcast numbers, and high-profile sponsorships. This is the WNBA's new era. Narrative-driven, personality-driven, and connection-driven, and Cunningham is one of the few players who checks every box, already choosing Caitlin Clark as her anchor. But what happens if the Fever fail to protect her? What if they stick with Mitchell or gamble on youth with someone like Alyssa Smith or Lexie Ho, chasing upside over identity? They don't just lose a defender, they risk Clark's trust, because this isn't about basketball anymore. It's about vision, loyalty, and chemistry. Cunningham is Clark's ride or die, on and off the court, the one who steps into chaos, absorbs the pressure, and gives Clark the space to shine as the generational talent she is. Lose that, and you fracture not only the roster but the locker room itself, especially with Clark publicly calling for Cunningham's return. Ignoring that signal isn't just risky, it's dangerous, because you're not merely making a roster decision. You're dismissing the judgment of your franchise players, and that sends a powerful message across the league. With CBA negotiations freezing free agency, nothing is moving, salaries, revenue sharing, all on pause. But when the new deal finally drops, the clock will start ticking fast. Teams will have only days to lock in their protection lists, no time for debate, no margin for error. The Fever are now on the clock, facing the same unavoidable question. Are they willing to risk losing Sophie Cunningham to protect someone else? Because if they hesitate, Portland or Toronto will pounce, and these expansion teams need more than just talent. They need identity, someone fans instantly recognize, someone who can go viral on day one while bringing leadership, media pull, and undeniable basketball toughness. Cunningham is that turnkey solution, offering legitimacy and impact overnight. If Indiana lets her slip, it signals to the league that chemistry is optional, narrative cohesion is secondary, and Clark's preferences can be ignored. A gamble no team can afford in this era where a single player can spike ticket sales, dominate jersey numbers, and move broadcast numbers like no one else. Caitlin Clark isn't just a star. She's a full-blown media engine. And when she says she wants Sophie Cunningham back, the league listens. Cunningham's value isn't theoretical. It's not just vibes or social clout. It's performance, presence, and leadership both on the court and in the media. She takes the hard fouls, handles tough matchups, talks the talk, and walks the walk, all while others chase fleeting attention. She sets culture and becomes the emotional benchmark of the Fever, and remove her, and what remains is a roster that might post numbers but loses its heart, loyalty, and chemistry. In today's WNBA, that's not just short-sighted, it's self-sabotage because the league already has attention, and Cunningham is a major reason why. Her podcast isn't a side hustle. It's infrastructure, converting casual fans into believers, bridging the gap between highlight reels and human stories. That influence isn't extra. It's essential, especially in a league with momentum, a $200 million annual media valuation, and fans who care deeply about stories. The Clark-Cunningham dynamic is one fans are fully invested in, and now the Fever face a critical choice. Play it safe or lean into what could define their season. Forget the spreadsheet. It's time to protect more than just obvious names and take a bold step forward. Embrace the complexity, safeguard what truly matters. Trust, identity, and loyalty. Because Sophie Cunningham isn't just someone Clark wants around. She's someone Clark needs, and if Indiana wants to stay relevant, to build something real, not just competitive but cultural, they already know the answer. Now it's only a question of whether they're brave enough to act on it. If you're fired up or already debating who the Fever should protect, hit like, drop your take in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss a single moment of the drama heading into expansion. This story is far from over, and the next chapter is about to drop. There's no sugarcoating it. This is the kind of moment that separates smart teams from relevant ones, because the Fever aren't just managing a roster. They're steering a movement, right at the center of the WNBA's cultural and commercial explosion. The Caitlin Clark effect is real, and anyone in the front office already knows everything changed the instant she put on that jersey. Viewership exploded, and suddenly Fever games were selling out in cities that never cared before, transforming every matchup into a national event, not because of playoff runs or legacy rebuilds, but because one player turned the spotlight on and the rest followed. In that whirlwind, Sophie Cunningham became far more than a teammate. She became part of the team's very architecture. Every time cameras caught her stepping into chaos before it boiled over, every time a flagrant foul landed, she was first in the mix. No waiting for refs, no looking to the bench, just handling it. That kind of presence is invaluable, especially for Clark, who entered the league with a giant target on her back, juggling superstar pressure, media scrutiny, and franchise leadership. Having someone like Sophie in that foxhole isn't optional. It's survival. So what happens if Indiana doesn't protect her? Prioritizing Kelsey Mitchell is understandable. She's productive, reliable, a bucket. But leaving Cunningham off the protection list now would be catastrophic. Portland and Toronto aren't just building teams, they're building brands, and Cunningham is exactly the kind of player who can define them from day one. And in this expansion era, the draft isn't just about skill. It's about star power, name recognition, immediate leadership, and no player checks more boxes than Sophie Cunningham. She's a marketing powerhouse, able to hold down a post-game press conference, host a pre-game podcast, and connect with audiences while provoking just enough to own a storyline without dominating it. That's rare. She's not just marketable, she's plug-and-play charisma. If the Fever leave her exposed, she's gone, full stop. So why risk it? Traditional basketball thinking dies hard, and some executives still focus only on points, assists, and efficiency ratings. But in today's league, social engagement, locker room chemistry, and public narrative move the needle just as much. The Fever must ask themselves what kind of franchise they want to be. A spreadsheet team or a story-driven team. The WNBA is now full-blown mainstream. ESPN coverage, real-time Twitter battles, viral debates on shows like First Take, and personalities matter. Cunningham fully understands that her media presence is strategic, not accidental, positioning herself at the center of the sports media ecosystem. By co-hosting a podcast on The Volume, she enters homes, gyms, and commutes every single week, cementing influence that transcends the court. That level of visibility is unprecedented in the WNBA, even beyond highlight reels, and Sophie Cunningham is speaking directly to audiences who never grew up watching the league, converting casual fans into committed supporters and bringing in entirely new blood. That's not fluff, that's expansion tier value, and now, thanks to this Instagram exchange, it's visibly tied to Caitlin Clark. There's no ambiguity left. They want to run it back. But what happens if the front office doesn't align? What happens if they send the message that the Clark-Cunningham bond is secondary to salary charts? You risk breaking something far more fragile than a lineup, you risk breaking trust. Clark didn't say run it back to just anyone. She said it to the teammate who made her feel protected, understood, and prioritized when the world around her felt volatile. Cunningham absorbed criticism, heat, and physical hits on purpose. That's leadership. Remove her, and you're not just gambling on the rest of the roster, you're gambling on the idea that Clark can recreate that same dynamic with someone else, a dangerous assumption because chemistry like that doesn't happen twice. For a team still building its post-Clark identity, ignoring a star player's very public wish list is a fast track to locker room tension. This isn't favoritism. It's recognizing leverage, and Clark isn't just the most talked about player in the league, she's the one shaping its narrative. Sophie Cunningham isn't just a teammate. She's also the biggest economic driver the Fever have ever had, and while that doesn't make her a GM, it does mean her voice carries enormous weight. If Clark is putting her influence behind Cunningham, it's not emotional, it's strategic. She's asking for the teammate who allows her to perform at her absolute best. And that's not a luxury, it's foundational. Cunningham didn't have to take on that role. She could have focused on herself, protected her own spotlight, and let Clark navigate rookie pressure alone, but she didn't. She stepped up, took the hits, absorbed scrutiny and criticism, and became the emotional blueprint for a team learning to weather the storm, all while delivering defensively, shining in clutch moments and expanding her off-court platform. She isn't asking to be carried, she's asking to be retained. So why the holdup? It comes down to risk management, weighing long-term stability against short-term pressure, reviewing contracts, projections, and development timelines. But at some point, you stop theorizing and focus on reality. Right now, the best player on your team publicly asked for the person who makes her feel safe, and that person said yes. That's not a rumor or a maybe, it's a deal ready to be sealed. Fumble this, let Cunningham get scooped in expansion while chasing a theoretical upgrade. And you don't just lose a player, you lose momentum, locker room cohesion, fan trust, and the cultural identity that sets your team apart. All for a stat line. This isn't the old WNBA. It's the age of visibility, virality, and value that stretches far beyond the court. And Sophie Cunningham is the prototype for what a modern WNBA player looks like. She defends, leads, engages fans, and builds brand equity all at once, which isn't a role player. It's a system piece. Remove her and you're not just changing rotations, you're rewriting the team's identity, and not in a positive way. Sure, there are risks in protecting her. You might lose a younger prospect or watch someone with upside slip through your fingers, but what's worse than that? Letting your franchise star feel like her opinion doesn't matter, because that damage lingers. In a league where storylines drive everything, ignoring that is disastrous. Now we wait. Will Indiana make the bold, emotionally intelligent choice and protect the glue that held the team together during its biggest spotlight year yet? Or will numbers and old-school logic gut the very foundation that made them exciting in the first place? Let's be honest. If the Fever let Cunningham walk now, they're not just creating a roster hole. They're creating a narrative vacuum that Portland or Toronto will happily fill. When expansion teams swoop in, draft her, hold a press conference, roll out the red carpet, and plaster her face on billboards, it's going to sting. Because while Indiana spins PR about young talent and tough decisions, Cunningham will be out there selling out arenas, anchoring a new franchise and shaping her own story. And that version will resonate loud and clear. She holds the mic literally, and this isn't a quiet player who fades into the background when leaving a team. Cunningham commands a podcast platform, appears regularly on national shows, and knows exactly how to shape perception. She'll talk about it, subtle, classy, but impossible to ignore, because she doesn't need drama to make a point. She's already done the work, building a loyal, vocal, and deeply engaged fan base. If she suddenly finds herself representing a new team, the first question fans will ask is simple. Why didn't the Fever protect her? And what excuse will you give that her value wasn't measurable, that she didn't score enough, that other priorities mattered more? Please. Everyone saw what she delivered in 2025. Protecting Caitlin Clark, defusing tense situations before they escalated, standing in the fire so Clark could play her game. That's why Clark said, "Run it back." Not just friendship but deep respect. And when a franchise player shows that level of admiration for a teammate, letting that teammate go isn't just bad optics, it's emotional sabotage. Loyalty, once broken, can't be patched with a press release. And you can't just plug someone else into Cunningham's spot and expect the same dynamic or chemistry to remain intact. Trust doesn't work that way, and team culture doesn't either, and the fans will absolutely notice. They'll remember Instagram comments, court moments, shoulder bumps, stare downs, and every time Sophie Cunningham had Caitlin Clark's back when things got rough. If she's not there next season, that absence will be felt, not just in the box score, but in the energy, chemistry, and heartbeat of the team. Crowd reactions shift when chemistry is disrupted. Ask any franchise that mismanaged a fan favorite. You don't just lose applause, you lose identity. Cunningham doesn't merely play for the Fever. She embodies the Fever, and she's a key reason casual fans even recognize the roster. Remove her and the message isn't just that she's expendable. It's that the storyline, the bond, the grit, the glue is expendable. At a moment when the WNBA is ascending faster than ever, that's exactly the last message you want to send. This league thrives on narrative momentum, on players who stand for something, on emotional connections that pull fans deeper than stat lines ever could. Fans don't just show up for points. They come for drama, tension, personalities, and the feeling that something real is unfolding on the court. Cunningham delivers that every single game. For Indiana, the question isn't can we afford to protect her, it's how can we afford not to. Because if Sophie Cunningham walks into expansion, the headlines write themselves, and so does the story fans will remember. When the Fever let go of Clark's closest ally, Sophie Cunningham, and she heads to Toronto after Indiana's snub, it sends a loud message. The team chose numbers over loyalty. Even if you win games next season, the story is already fractured. Trust between the front office and your star is shaky, and the chemistry that carried you through last year's chaos is gone. That's the hard truth no one wants to admit. You can lose a key player and still win some games, but lose your identity and expect the locker room to hold, and you're mistaken. Maybe in a different era teams could make that move and ride it out, but not now, not in 2026, not in a media climate where the entire sports world is watching the WNBA with serious, consistent attention. This is a visibility-driven league now, and Cunningham isn't just visible, she's visionary. She understands how to play the long game, not just for herself but for the entire franchise. She's built a platform that elevates everyone, and letting that walk isn't just losing a rotation, it's rebuilding a brand from scratch. So here we are at the crossroads, and the choice has never mattered more. The Fever have only a few weeks, maybe just days, after the CBA is finalized to make the critical call. Who they're going to protect, who they're going to bet on, and who they're willing to risk losing. And let's be honest, there's no perfect answer here. There's always risk. But in this case, the risk of letting Sophie Cunningham walk away is far greater than anything you lose on the court. You're not just losing points, rebounds, or minutes. You're losing a protector, a connector, a voice, a standard-bearer, and the very heartbeat of your team. That kind of presence isn't something you replace with a trade deadline deal, a shiny draft pick, or even the best young talent available. Cunningham's value is woven into the identity of the Fever, into the chemistry that allowed Clark to thrive, and into the narrative that now has the entire WNBA watching Indiana's every move. If the Fever are smart, they'll listen, not just to Clark, not just to the fans, but to the moment itself, because everything about this moment is screaming the same thing. Keep her. And if you're locked into this saga like we are, now is not the time to go quiet. Hit that like button, drop your take in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss a second of the drama when the expansion draft hits, because the protection list going live will reveal exactly who's paying attention, who's thinking long-term, and who's fumbling what could be the most consequential decision of the season.